Meet Chip Hanauer at his home in Seattle, surrounded by water. In fact, his whole life has been surrounded by water. Indeed, he's come close to drowning more than a few times. He's also broken his back, smashed his skull, had his voice torn from his brain. Chip is a cum laude graduate of Washington State University. He is also the greatest hydroplane racer in the world.
As I look back at my career, in my life, there's nothing I'd change. That doesn't necessarily mean there's things I wouldn't do differently, but no, I feel that I'm just the most blessed person there is. I mean, how many people get to dream, of little kids of doing whatever it is they want to do, whether it's play music or, perform or race or play football or whatever, and then get to grow up and do it. It's funny that we look at athletes in our culture as, heroes when we're really not. We're just recipients of the best of luck because we're playing childhood games and doing what we wanted to do as a kid and being paid more than we deserve to be paid. So, it's just been wonderful. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad it started. I'm glad we had the success. And I'm glad it ended when it did and how it did, and that I've got the rest of my life to do new things with.
The Miss Budweiser team is the New York Yankees of hydroplane racing. But Chip wanted his crew to be more like family, without tension, without infighting.
I definitely felt I was a bit of an outcast, and I think my peers in boat racing always looked at me as kind of an oddity. They were great people in racing, and I have some great friends to this day from racing, but I think as a group as a whole, we were living in different cultures, so to speak. And it was weird for me to kind of go from one culture to the other, especially when I was teaching school. I was a special education teacher, and dealing with kids. My kids were all behavior disorder kids that came from horrible homes, abusive, neglective homes. So I would leave this one culture and fly into this other culture where there was money and excess, and then boom, 3 days later I'm back in the classroom dealing with kids who just know nothing but misery their whole life. So it was kind of hard to move back and forth from one culture to the other.
But transition and change are never far from Chip in his personal life and his sport.
I think the racer has changed over the years. I think the racer today is a very professional, calculated, intelligent guy and woman now. In the old days, I think there was, race hard, live hard, play hard, and those days are gone. I think you've got to be really focused. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to be in shape. You've got to be able to represent a sponsor. Like all sports, it's just become very big business, and when it became big business, it became more sophisticated. So I think that the old hell-raising days are over. To a degree, I think it's a bit sad because I think there was more character sometimes in the racers. Then, when they did an interview, they didn't feel so obligated to talk about their sponsor and never say the wrong thing, which everything has become somewhat bland, I think, in my opinion. The Gold Cup is for a powerboat racer what the Indy 500 is to a car racer. It's our one big event. And I grew up as a kid wanting to win one Gold Cup. I wanted to win one national championship and one Gold Cup. When I won the one Gold Cup, I could have walked away pretty much a happy guy. I didn't. I stayed at it, and lo and behold, we won the second one, and then we won the third one, and then we won the fourth one. And after a while, I almost wanted it to end because there was so much pressure. It's the minute after I won the fourth one is the first question wasn't congratulations, it was can you win a fifth one, and then can you win a sixth one.
And this should be some heat, Tom. The Miss Budweiser with Chip Hanauer, Smokin' Joe with Mark Tate, plus Michael Hansen and DeWalt Tools, and Jimmy King and Miss Exide.
I knew I had the inside, which was a good thing. I knew that Mark Tate, to my right, had gotten a good start as well. That was a bad thing. And I knew it was going to be 5 laps of deck to deck.
Yeah, and Smokin' Joe moving fast. Chip Hanauer will try to stay, of course, to the inside, the shorter trip.
They're getting
very close.
Very close. About 15 feet apart, and they're looking neck and neck going to the Belle Isle turn. They're in the turn now, side by side.
So at that point, I remember going down the corner and thinking, just settling in and going, this is not going to be over in the first corner. This is going to be 5 laps of intense racing.
Little bounciness there.
Oh, Budweiser crashed.
Budweiser's over.
All of a sudden, everything's bad. And at that point, it doesn't give you time to think about it. It's just, next thing you know, it's this horrible impact. The next thing that comes to your mind is, I hope this thing lands right side up, because it's a lot more pleasant to be right side up, breathing air, than being upside down, hanging in the belts, breathing compressed air. And you know it's going to take a long time to extricate you in that position. So I was very grateful that the boat landed right side up. At that point, you don't really know how hurt you are. I think shock takes over and you feel fine. By the time they got me out of the boat and on the stretcher, I knew I had hurt myself.
He's been transported to Methodist Hospital, and his vital signs are fine right now. Some abrasions on his face. They're going to take x-ray of his spine. He is on IV and he is strapped to a board. Other than that, he doesn't remember anything about the accident.
As a racer, you can never be afraid of dying or being afraid of injury. It's part of it. And basically, every year I would sit myself down and basically weigh the upside and the downside and say what I'm doing, and never buying into denial, and telling myself that this is dangerous. The worst case scenario is you can be paralyzed forever, live the rest of your life in a wheelchair, you can be dead. Is it worth it to you? And the answer was always yes. It was like, this is my love, this is my passion, this is what I do. And then one day it's no. I value too much of the rest of my life. I enjoy the time with my family, and I enjoy skiing, and I enjoy traveling, and I want to learn to do other things. And then I'm no longer willing, or a driver is no longer willing to take the risks, which you need to take to win, to stay competing. So that time came for me, and it's time to walk away. People are always shocked when they come into, I don't know if they're shocked or disappointed when they come into either one of my homes when there's no pictures, there's no trophies, there's no anything, and I think they find that curious. But even when I was in the middle of racing, there was racing and then there was my life, and I kept them very separate. And I don't wish I really kept the trophies. They would have been very little value to me. I think what's of value to me is what's in my head and my memory, and what's in my heart. And I have some wonderful memories. And there's times that I do sit down and reflect of the funny times, the tragic times, the intense times. I don't need trophies. I don't need pictures. Those are always inside of me. When I wanted that perfect piece of waterfront property, Windermere found it for me. There was nothing on it except an old trailer and a deck. It was perfect. Love at first sight. A few days after I bought the property, I had a horrible accident, but I wanted to be back at the property. When I got there, there was a chaise lounge sitting there. My agent did that. That's Windermere. And you know what else? They made a donation to my favorite charity. Wish they'd have given it to me.